Thanks for accessing these Inspired for Mission videos. In this session, we get a chance to talk with Tracy Gingras, who's the developer of a new ministry in the Greater Milwaukee Synod named Be Still. It's a coffee shop ministry in Mama D's Coffee Shop in Wales, Wisconsin. She also introduces us to Lydia and to Jeff, two of her regular participants, and the three of them share with us where they are seeing God show up in the coffee shop. In a Sunday morning time, they call Sunday Stillness, and in a midweek time, they call Open Table. This was a really inspiring conversation for everybody who was a part of it live, because we talked about how the simple practice of embedding ourselves in public spaces, getting outside the walls of our churches, getting to know people and build genuine relationships, the fact that God will do something with those relationships if we stay curious and follow the lead of the Spirit. I hope you find this inspiring as well, and that it helps percolate some ideas for what your congregation might be able to do, building relationships outside your walls in spaces in the community, and seeing what God will do with that. There are questions at the very end of the video that you can use for discussion with a group. But beyond anything else, we simply hope that this conversation and the spiritual practice that Tracy introduces to us during the conversation are a gift to your congregation and help draw you closer to Jesus and the work that he's doing through our shared ministry. We hope you enjoy this conversation.
Hello, fellow disciples in the Greater Milwaukee Synod. Welcome to Inspired for Mission, this monthly opportunity to hear and discuss inspiring stories about where God is leading our church. My name is Jamie Larson McClune, and I am pastor at Bethel Lutheran Church in Muskego and Gloria Dei Lutheran Church in Menominee Falls. And today I am talking with Tracy Gingras about meeting God over coffee, meeting God outside the church building. Tracy, will you just introduce yourself briefly, please?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight to talk about what's going on at Be Still. I am the synodically authorized minister for this new SOC or worshiping community in the Synod, and we have been around officially for a year plus a couple months. So I am excited also to be here with a couple of our regulars, as I like to call them. This is Lydia next to me. I also work with her at Mama D's. We're both baristas. And I also have Jeff Smith with me. He is a regular attendee at our Sunday Stillness gathering. So thank you to the two of them for joining us this evening. I graduated from Luther Seminary in 2021, and it was not my call to be in traditional parish ministry, but to do something new. And I ended up in a coffee shop. So part of the mission and vision for Be Still is to go where people are. And here at Mama D's in Wales, which is where Be Still takes place, there are lots of people here. Lots and lots of people here. We probably had our busiest summer yet in the 11 years that it's been in existence. So it has been an amazing place to see something be planted and sprout and begin to grow. And we're looking forward to what's coming next. So that is what I have for an introduction. And I will say, I just want to say, nobody, to my knowledge, has found God in latte art yet. We're still waiting for that revelation.
Well, we will stay tuned for that. Thank you, Tracy. I heard you use a term, SOC. So could you tell us about the Be Still ministry and what makes that a SOC and what a SOC is?
So a SOC is a synodically authorized worshiping community. It is not a traditional congregation or parish ministry, and I'm sure Matt can expound upon that. But this is a new ministry development. So it's taking place outside of a regular church building. We operate similarly to a church, but it's a little bit different. There are some different aspects to that. So it's kind of a new thing that we see how things are going before it actually graduates or potentially graduates into a congregation, if that's the vision.
Thank you, Tracy. So tell me, even if you haven't encountered God yet in latte art, how are you encountering God as part of the ministry of Be Still?
Really, so for me, I'm going to invite this question for Jeff and Lydia too, but for me, I feel very much like God is being encountered here in the simplicity of what exists, the life at Mama D's. So this space was really already, just the atmosphere here is already like, you can just feel it's got its own culture and its spirit. It's a very hospitable environment, meaning that the people here, the workers here, the people who come and stay, or the people who just come and grab a coffee and go, everybody just has this like air of friendliness. And it's almost like Cheers, if you've ever seen Cheers, where, everybody knows your name. And if they don't know your name, they certainly know your drink order. So there's, laughter and silliness here. There's this notion of just a willingness and a desire to serve other people. There's also a noticing and awareness. So we notice as baristas, I notice at Be Still, when people are present, when people aren't present, if they don't show up, we notice those things. We notice if somebody is sad or angry about something, and it's just something that's kind of in our blood, I think. And I'm saying this as both intentionally, as both a coffee shop and the Be Still ministry, because the one thing, and this will probably come later, that surprises me is how well these two things are really integrated here, which just speaks to the vision, really. So I encounter God just in everything, in the fact that these two things are integrated, but also that it's just really in all the little details that we've noticed. It's just something that we encounter kind of on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. It's almost like it's in the air, is what a lot of our customers say. It's just a lot of our customers in the community around here just spread so much positivity and faith with each other. It's very surprising to see so many faith-based customers and sharing it all with each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeff, how about you? Because Lydia's been to Open Table, which is, it's out in, and I'll explain more later, but that's a gathering that takes place like in the main area of the coffee shop. So it invites people, in who are just waiting for coffee, or we have some regulars who attend. So kind of this fluid conversation that takes place, and a lot of times happens to be about some aspect of faith. But Jeff comes to our Sunday stillness regularly, and that's a different area of our shop here. It takes place in the pink room, and that's a quieter time in a quieter space. So I'll let Jeff speak to that a little more.
The context that I came to Be Still is actually I was baptized Lutheran and went to Lutheran church many years. In fact, I attended regularly when I was a youth, when I was in high school, when I was in college, would always go back to the same church. And then later in life, continued to find a new church here in Wisconsin, and then moved and then another church. But now my life is more focused with my wife of the spirituality and the focus of what Tracy does on the Sunday morning service, is if you want to call it a service. But the point being is that my wife and I deem it to be very spiritual and very personal at the same time. And that the scripture readings that we read, that she reads, and then we talk about, and we have a group of individuals there now on the Sunday morning that we actually know already for a number of years, that have gone to a more traditional church. And so now they see this spirituality that Tracy is doing, which we already knew Tracy for a number of years. And so she's bringing a new version of her church scenario, which I'll call it the New Testament of what Christ said, go out and actually create churches amongst the people. And so the people are certainly visiting in a home back then, Tracy's home is the coffee shop with Lydia and other coworkers and people that come and go. Just like you said, like Cheers, which, yeah, I used to watch Cheers, especially when it was live on TV. So point being is I get it. She's in an area where it's a good traffic flow of diversity of people. And because we have that spiritual talk amongst us, we're very open. But we also have the communion and prayer and focusing on what else are we supposed to be doing in our lives to help other people. So the Sunday hour turns out typically to be more like 2 hours, because then we socialize afterwards or have small, we'll say, more one-on-one conversations, like follow-ups and more personal / deep dive into spirituality, where we're at and where we want to go. And so I would add that to what Tracy and Lydia actually said. So.
Thanks, Jeff. I love thinking about that. Those after gathering conversations being spiritual conversations. That's wonderful. So as you encounter God together at Mama D's, who else are you encountering?
You want me to go first, Tracy?
If you are ready, and go for it.
Well, as I said previously, we know a number of people there. However, because of Mama D's and what Tracy and Lydia are doing, I actually get to meet other individuals which are needing a spiritual place where they feel safe due to personal tragedy or difficulties in life. They want to come and actually experience what Tracy is providing to them with this small group. And so those are nice people to bring in, because it's more on a personal basis versus at a traditional church where they come in, you say hello, what's your name, they're visiting, and then they're gone. That doesn't really happen with the Sunday service with Tracy.
I would add to speak to kind of the open table aspect. So because that is an open invitation to anybody who walks in the door, we have people who come in regularly, but then we get to meet a lot of new people on any given Thursday that we're here. People who wait for drinks that we've seen for the first time or many times, we just invite them to sit down at the table while they're waiting and join the conversation. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do and end up staying a lot longer than they feel like they can afford, and say, oh, I'm running late now. So we get to meet all kinds of people from different backgrounds, different denominations, no denominations, spiritually, but none. People who have never gone to church, people who, like Jeff said, have maybe, had some sort of painful memory of a church. Gosh, I can't even, we've had some interesting folks stop by, as you might imagine. When you open the doors to all, and you really mean all, you have to expect that not everybody is going to, fit neat and nicely in whatever you have going. And I think our group has always, at least, well, both sides, Sunday and Thursday, we've always been very welcoming regardless. And the people who don't feel like it's for them have, self-select out. So I'm grateful that we're still acting and behaving the way that I think we should, that we see all people as having the body of Christ in them, and we are one member, or, we're all one body. And that is truly the way that I see our regulars acting with each other and with newcomers into groups. So, and I would also like to add that, as I mentioned before, we're very integrated with the coffee shop. So I think this is a really cool thing, but there are a lot of 20-somethings that are part of this ministry that we typically don't see in a normal church, in a traditional church setting. So some of them come to Be Still on Sunday mornings, and some of them participate in the open tables, and some of them I get to work with. Actually, most of them I get to work with. So it's fun.
So what has surprised you?
This is the one question I couldn't answer very well. I didn't. What a surprise. Literally, is there anything that surprised you?
I would say, I mean, just how like meditative almost it is. I always say anytime I walk out of that room, I have chills going through me because she creates such a calm, still space during whatever practice or reading we're doing. Um, so what surprised me a lot is just the way it's made me feel in the calmness and stillness it brings you, truly.
I would support that 100%, Lydia, and that I was surprised how deeply spiritual was, that I haven't left the Sunday session service without feeling that peace and spirituality that permeates sort of my mind and body, so to speak, and spirit for the rest of that day. Versus quickly getting back into going to the grocery store in a nice way at 10:30 from the past. So that deepness and that calmness of the way she delivers everything is a key aspect of what Tracy does.
As they were talking, I thought, wow, that's so nice. That sounds like something I'd like to participate in. And this is
You are.
this is the thing, though. That's what I wanted to say. What surprises me, I think, is that yes, I maybe am the facilitator and I've started calling myself a space maker. I might do that. However, the beauty of this is that I actually participate with them. So when we talk at Open Table, I'm participating in the conversation, bringing up my questions, bringing up my doubts. I also, on Sunday stillness, sometimes like this past week, Jeff's wife did the prayers for us, and I got to pray then with them. Instead of leading the group, which is really nice. So this group that has formed and is continuing to form we're all empowering each other to do all those things and to do the ministry together. So it's not just me doing everything all the time. It's a joy to begin something, to start something, and I love being able to say, I trust you and God trusts you. Can you do the prayers today? Or Lydia has full on led twice now Sunday stillness for us, which has been awesome. So I can trust another person and know that God is going to lead them too. So it's surprising that I can participate as well, because that's something I wasn't sure I'd be able to do. But it's actually, I think, a really beautiful thing that we all get to just do this actually together collaboratively.
Could you tell us briefly what Sunday stillness looks like, and what Open Table looks like? And I realize there may not be one, it always looks like this. So if that's the answer, say that too.
Well, they're pretty consistent. So Sunday stillness is, I call it, it's a contemplative worship service. We begin with an opening prayer, and we usually just invite the Holy Spirit into that space. I bring people down to calm our space, getting their minds and their hearts kind of ready for listening to the word or being still with whatever spiritual practice we're going to do. And then we go right into some spiritual practice. That might be Lectio Divina, which is a sort of sacred reading of a text. Sometimes we use poetry, and we read through it a couple times with different intentions. That's just one thing that we do pretty often. We've also done some writing activities. We've listened to music. We've done some very, very simple like yoga moves to the Psalms, to kind of, get our bodies moving in that space. Those are just some spiritual practices that we've done. And then we usually have a time of prayer, some sort of prayers of intercession, usually, or maybe even just a quick, broad communal prayer. And we do communion, and I do a blessing. And really, that's it. It is a very quiet time. We do talk about our experiences during the spiritual practice, and I try to keep it focused on, you know, how did that feel? What was God saying to you during that time? Those kinds of questions, so that we can really focus on how God is speaking to us each individually, but also there as a group together. Open table is a whole lot more fluid and a lot less controlled, which can be a good thing sometimes. And sometimes it just gets loud and funny. We let the Spirit sort of lead the conversation, but I usually have, I begin the conversation with some sort of a thought-provoking question. Might be spiritual in nature, might not be. It might be something silly like, what movie character would you be if you could be any movie character? And the people at the table can answer, you know, as deeply and thoughtfully as they like to, or not. So there's no forced vulnerability there. It's just, you know, however the Spirit is moving you. And sometimes someone new will come in and have something else to talk about, and then we move on to that. And so it's just kind of a free for all. Somehow I managed to loop back to the original question, but I think that's part of it, is everybody kind of brings something to the table those days, and it might not always be what you expect. And sometimes it's just a lot of laughter.
Thank you. So what have you learned about meeting God in a space outside a traditional church building?
Do you two want to respond to that first?
Lydia, go.
I don't know. It's grown my connection in so many different ways. It's helped me feel connected with other people in that sense. It's helped me feel involved. I don't never really consistently went to a church. I did growing up. And not to say out of fear, it was just a hard thing to find a good group of people where I can connect with God. It's really helped me find that connection.
I would say that I was surprised of how it could actually deepen my spirituality and deepen the discussions. Having grown up in the church and participated in church services and in men's group and in prayer groups, it's a matter of, okay, what is a different version that sort of combines the best of all of those into a Sunday event? And I was surprised that Tracy's, you know, format and the way she does it does that. Not surprised in Tracy, but I'm saying surprised that it moved me. And that as fellow adults and youth, such as Lydia and others, participate, how their learnings in Christianity and through God in them sound deja vu. And that we all sort of experience a certain learning curve, a certain learning capability, and that they're not necessarily that different. The details may be different, the situation may be different, but the learning is still similar in that you know that it's a spiritual hand that's actually leading the way for that person. And so it's great that we share that personal data at a very high level, you know, but the understanding is still there. And that's where Tracy was saying, depending on how, you know, what we're focused on. So last week was focused on forgiving. Well, there's a lot of discussion about that one. And it was very similar to how each of us sort of went through that, or we're stopped and we're trying to break it and continue on. And so that was interesting, both young and old, of how they experience God's teachings. Because if we're in traditional church, we're all I hate to say this, we're all sitting there being quiet.
Could I say something, since I've been to quite a few open tables myself?
Yep.
Sure.
I consider myself kind of a half member.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Tracy? You
Yeah,
mind?
you can be not a regular, you can be a decaf.
I can be a decaf. Okay. I just want to say, if you go up to Mama D's on a Thursday morning, and I've done this a few times, there's a sign out in front that says open table question. It's there. They're doing evangelism and outreach to the world. You go in, this is a tiny little place, and there's people discussing something cool, and people hear it who are ordering coffee. And it's a life zest evangelism. It's in the midst of real life. And you sit down and man, you don't know who's there at that table and who might have joined. And I'm an advocate for this ministry, and I pray for this ministry. And All Saints, where I'm a interim pastor, is an official mission partner with this ministry. And I just think it's doing a lot of cool things. It is a fresh expression, you may know that phrase, of a new way to do ministry in the world. And I applaud all of it. You paid me enough, Tracy, for that, and just wanted to share that here at this meeting. So thank you.
Is there some free coffee involved
Coffee,
here?
coffee, decaf, I heard.
I want you to know I have gotten quite a few free coffees at Mama D when I show up, so it's great. But anyway, I just wanted to know that the real point is it's evangelism in the real world. It's not sitting in a church. It's people are there interacting with it you've never met before, and so that's the strength, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to address this one to you. But how might what you're learning and what we're hearing tonight, how might this matter for those of us who are involved in more traditional congregations or worshiping communities?
I think this matters in that, one, it can be something that inspires churches to reach out a little bit, put the feelers and the legs outside of the church building. They can still, you can still stay connected to a home base. But there are possibilities for evangelism and outreach that don't look in the traditional way, that still have this amazing life, and to participate. It's a way of integrating. It's a way of integrating the church with the secular, if you want to look at it that way. It's the sacred and the secular really coming together and participating in the life of life, if that makes sense. The life of the church, and it is the life that is outside the church. It matters because I believe that's what our mission is, as people called to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world. You have to go out into the world. You have to. The world will not always come to you, and there is beauty in that. There is risk in that. It is not easy. It is not always, it's not rosy. This is not a rosy colored glasses thing, but it is exciting, and it is new, and it is hopeful, and it is so beautiful to see awesome things. So I think it matters to have traditional church ministries to see the possibilities are there, and that the church isn't the structure. The church is the people, and the church is Christ out in the world. So wherever that is, wherever people are gathered and talking and having the character of Christ, if I can use those words from today, that matters, because we could be speaking the language differently in a church than we do outside, and still speaking from our baptism, still speaking the gospel.
Thanks, Tracy. Are you prepared to lead us in a brief spiritual practice tonight?
I am, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to have everybody here be guinea pigs for one that I'd like to try and possibly use our Sunday mornings. So this one's brief because we're limited a little bit on time, which is great for this. So normally I would probably stretch this out a little bit and really go deeper. But so to give you a taste of something similar to what we do or what we might do on Sunday mornings. So I am going to set my phone with a timer for 1 minute. And when I say start, I'm just going to ask everybody here to let your thoughts go, whatever you're thinking. You could be thinking, gosh, this is really boring and I need to leave. You could be thinking, gosh, this is really amazing. I want to know more. You could be thinking, oh, shoot, did I take the thing out of the oven that I was going to make for whatever thought you have, just let it go. Let it run wild and think about it. And then I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask you a question. And then we're going to do it again. I'll set it for 1 minute and I'm going to invite you to think about something else and then we'll discuss that afterwards. So I will go through that again as we go through, but for this first time, just let your thoughts run wild, whatever that looks like, okay? All right, the minute starts now. Okay, your minute is up. So you can, again, you can be as vulnerable as you'd like, but what did you think about during that minute? I'll start. I was thinking about how weird it was that the garage door was open when I got here and nobody had actually opened the garage to anybody's knowledge. Apparently we have a ghost here.
I found myself flooded with thoughts. Like my day was accumulating and they were all trying to be heard. All my thoughts were trying to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about, we just returned our daughter's cat to her. We have been taking care of our daughter's cat for the last, most of the week. And she's had some pretty intense medical needs. And it's been a challenge, but a blessing as well. And my husband has never had a pet. Well, no, we had a dog when our kids were growing up, but he never had a pet when he was growing up. And he certainly never, ever, ever wanted to have a cat. And the very fact that the second to last day that we had the cat finally came over and was bumping him like, why aren't you petting me? And at first he resisted and then the cat went over. So it was, it's been a challenge and we will have her back in December. But very different for the two of us and kind of a calming influence in this horrible time of so much that's going on in the country and the world. And we had to focus on the cat. So that was interesting.
Anybody else want to share what they thought about in a minute?
I started with thinking about a retreat that I led a week and a half ago and 2 words that someone had said about them and trying to remember those 2 words. And then as soon as they came into my mind, I was like, okay, I can let that go. And then and then it got a little weird because I just had an image in my mind of like cartoon legs running on a treadmill. And I know, strange, right? And then they slowed down and stopped and then walked over and sat on sort of this land and stone retaining wall. So not sure what that meant.
Well, put a pin in that, Danette, and we'll talk about that later. Oh, great. Okay, well, we'll move on. I'm going to set the timer for another minute. Now, this time, I'm going to invite you to find yourself in the presence of God. That is going to look different for all of us. That might be you sitting on a bench with Jesus. That might be you floating on a cloud. It might be you with, a motherly figure. It might be nothing at all, just with wind. Whatever God looks like or feels like to you, just imagine yourself in the presence for the next minute. And that's it. That's all the prompting that's given here. Okay. Your minute starts now. Okay. All right. So how was this second minute different from the first one? And if it wasn't, that's okay. There's no have to feel any certain way in this. But if it was different, if you would be so brave as to share how it might have been different.
I'll share. My vision of God is catching trout at the bottom of a waterfall in Smoky Mountain National Park, fly fishing. And so my vision of God is awe. And it was totally different than the first minute. And the time went fast in the second minute, but slow in the first minute. That's my reflections.
The second minute felt like 20 seconds, Tracy. I agree with it.
Yeah.
And it was more of one vision that I just focused on versus a developing thought over the previous time period over that minute. Because that one just evolved. Whereas this one was just, this is it. I want to see it and feel it. That's it. Not talk, not complain. See it and feel it.
Nice. Anybody else want to share?
Of all the thoughts that were overwhelming me in the first minute, I think God led me to the one that is of the most importance.
So that is just, like I said, if I did that on a Sunday morning, we would probably sit in silence with that, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Yeah. Might seem like a really, really long time. But I think the longer we sit still, and it doesn't always have to be in silence, but the longer we sit still with that, we're forced to feel, we're forced to think, we're forced to face whatever's going on. And I think God uses all of that, all of our emotion, all of our embodiment of our emotion to speak to us. So what I would do then, and I'll do with you if you'd like, is just lead a brief discussion on how that whole exercise was for you. Was that helpful? Is that something that you might carry on with you through the week? Because these are all practices we can all do individually too. It's just sometimes doing them in a group, especially when you're in person, but even on screen, there's an energy that happens. There's something that happens when people are together in one place that causes you to feel something a little bit differently than when you're by yourself.
The 1 minute exercise, Tracy, I think for other studies could work very well to center people into the work that is to be done in that study. When I came on, I had just finished doing a Hepatha Bible study. And sometimes it's hard to corral everybody to be ready. And I think the 2 minutes could be very helpful to do that for them. It did for me.
Yeah, thank you.
I think about those times that I try to be still and listen to God, but this like getting all that stuff out of my head first, that was a really amazing practice for me, and it made that second minute so much more calm. And yes, it was over. Yes, I agree with Jeff. It felt like 20 seconds. And that was meaningful for me too, to hear that shared experience with people who said that first minute felt a lot longer. And that second minute of calm just felt like it was over in a flash.
I'll just express too, Tracy, I thought it was beautiful earlier when you said that you're starting to refer to yourself as a space maker. And I think we all just experienced that. I think by giving us a simple practice, you helped us, even over Zoom, feel a little bit more connected with each other and definitely more connected with God by just holding space for that. So I think we just had a tangible experience of exactly what that phrase means.
Tracy, is there anything else you want to share with us about this practice before we move on to our next step?
About this practice? No.
Okay. So normally we would do breakout rooms around this time, but we just had a really good, engaging experience. And I still have one more really important question for Tracy and Lydia and Jeff. So I'm going to ask them that question, and then maybe we'll make some space, because I know at least one of you has a question for Tracy, and I suspect that might be true of some others of you. Does that sound okay? Was anybody just dying to get into a breakout group? Okay, thank you very much for responding in the different ways that you responded. So I don't know if Tracy wants to start, or Lydia, or Jeff, but our closing question is one we ask all of our guests here, and it really gets to the heart of why we do what we do. And that question is, in one sentence, why does Jesus matter to you?
I will start. This is a caveat to my one sentence. I have struggled, in all honesty, with finding a deep relationship with the person of Jesus. And I have come to find out through this practice in this ministry that Jesus matters because he was, and quite frankly, is still the embodiment of God. And what I mean by that is Christ, I see Christ present in all people. Even if I don't like them, I see them a little bit. I see the possibilities in somebody. And because of that, it's freeing to be able to reflect the relationship that I have with Christ too, that has come out with other people. So that is why Jesus matters to me.
Thank you, Tracy.
To put it in a short sentence, I think Jesus matters to me because he's provided a whole entire earth of beauty. Everything on this earth, it's a different form of beauty, from people, from the nature, and it's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Thanks, Lydia.
As I said earlier about my time period within church, etc., since I was really around 4th or 5th grade, but I've always felt, especially when I was younger, because being new or young, that message in my mind that says you're good, you can do this, and this is what I want you to do, and you're going to do it in a loving, caring way the rest of your life. And when you have a relationship with Jesus and you get older and older, that's, I don't want to say it's more important, but it becomes a higher priority. And so if you don't do that with Jesus, then you're, we'll say, taking it from your phone, or taking it from social media, or taking it from the news, or taking it from a friend. And we'll say 99% of the time, that's not from Jesus if you're not connected to Jesus. If it comes from a friend like that, it's probably, hey, think, I'm here. Are you listening? And so I think it's important that we all try to have that connection with him, because it enables us to be the best we can be of who he designed us to be. We're never perfect, but we sure try.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, all of you, for sharing those brief stories with us tonight. Let's take maybe 5 or 6 minutes and ask some questions. I know there's a question in the chat already from Kathy. Is Kathy still here? I'm going to read it, but if you want to expound on that, you certainly may. Kathy asks, was this Tracy's idea from the beginning, or how did you get started with this? Your idea, the Synod's idea?
Well, how much time do we have? It was an idea that was sparked through, one, not knowing what I wanted to do in ministry, but felt called to do something different and new. It was also combined with a conversation that I had with somebody who was very involved in a church, but felt frustrated with certain things and was looking for some different avenues to experience faith, to grow their faith. And during all this time of discernment, I ended up taking a part-time job at Mama D's just for something to do. And really all 3 things combined. And honestly, it was a Holy Spirit moment that was like, why don't you just do a coffee shop church? So that's really, really how it came to be. And once I had that, I felt like that was the right thing, even though I didn't know all the details at that time. I really felt like that was what I was called to do. And so I, started working with Matt, and we developed, a plan and a presentation, and got it approved, and all of that stuff, all the administrative stuff. So that's how that came to be. But it really just started, it was a deep listening, really, that happened, and following the voice, if you will.
And
oh, go ahead, Matt.
I'll just throw this in, Tracy, that, part of it, this actually gets to Greg's question. He was jumping on Kathy's there to say how the relationship with the coffee shop itself start. Well, it started because you got a part-time job there. And I think that's really instructive for us, because what essentially happened is you embedded yourself in that place and built relationships there. And then God did something with those relationships. And then the other thing that's just good for all of you to know is that the ELCA actually does budget money to support things like this when it's clearly the Spirit leading. And so then when somebody like Tracy has the vision for something like this, then there are some grant funds that can help support the beginning of it so that it has a chance to grow. And like she went to a couple trainings that were really more about connecting with other people doing outside the box ministries around the country. She and I went to a couple of those. And so that's some of the stuff that plays in. But but it was clearly led by the Spirit, and the way you embedded yourself in the coffee shop and built those relationships, God did something with that.
And they haven't fired me yet. So that's a real positive. So I'm bivocational too.
You mean at the coffee shop?
Yes. Yes.
Tracy, I wonder if you have more to say about the second part of Greg's question. I don't know if you can see it there in the chat. How do you get space to do this in a public setting? You started, like Pastor Matt said, by embedding yourself there. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I will, because I think that's an excellent question and something that is honestly, I'm extremely humbled and grateful. But as Lydia and I were kind of sharing before, this space already has a presence. It already has a spirit and a culture in it of faith. And I just happen to know that the owner of the business used to be involved in Young Life very heavily. So there's a strong component of faith and community already here, which does help. And that's just something that I've learned over a period of time of being a customer here and a patron here. But the space that I have to work really comes with the approval and grace from Mama D to be doing things like this here. So there's, in addition to Be Still, there's a number of Bible studies that get held here weekly. There's a Moms in Prayer group that gets held here weekly. These things, because they are, church oriented or religious oriented, those things are all take place in what we call the pink room. So they're not all out in the open. The only things out in the open is open table, because it's not a church service. So she does designate a space for that, because it is a for-profit secular business. But the conversation never really gets restricted. Even the music, we play Christian music here all the time. I don't even know if people really know that, but it's just here. So I guess how I just continue maintaining the relationship with Mama D. I keep her apprised on how the ministry is going, and she's extremely supportive of it. And in fact, when I first told her about this idea, she said, wow, I've been waiting for something like this to happen here. This is something that I've always wished would happen, something like this here. So she never really built that into her business plan, but God puts people in the right place at the right time to make things happen. And that's really how it's happened. So I wouldn't try to go do this in a Starbucks. I don't think it would ever happen, nor would it be the right atmosphere. But a small coffee shop, it starts with building relationships with the people and talking to people, patronizing the business, learning about the owners and the people who work there. Because I think that's where the possibilities are. You just never know what's on people's hearts and minds unless you begin the conversation. And that means we have to be willing to step out and ask the questions and talk to people. It is a brave and courageous thing to do, and it is so filled with possibility and excitement.
Wow, thank you so much, Tracy. I am feeling so inspired. I hope other folks are too. And I'm wondering if folks are feeling inspired and have some more questions, Tracy, would they be able to reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Would you be willing to put some contact information in the chat for us?
You bet. You bet.
I'm really grateful for everyone who shared just a bit of their story tonight. And Pastor Matt has some more to say about sharing stories.
Yeah, I just wanted, it was so beautiful, Tracy, that you invited us into this simple practice tonight of first clearing away the clutter, letting it just be there, and then imagining ourselves in God's presence. And that all felt like really good preparation for the how does Jesus matter to you? Why does Jesus matter to you question? And I just want to lift up how that simple question and inviting people to share, even in a sentence, that is something we can do. That simple practice of inviting people to say why this is important to them, why Jesus is important, why faith is important to them, how God has touched their lives, even in a sentence or two. That simple practice actually, I think, has deep power to revitalize our ministries. To that end, we are actually going to start over the next 6 to 9 months holding events across the Synod where that's what we do. We're calling these events I Love to Tell the Story. And we're going to have people share in 5 to 7 minutes. And these are people who have prepared to do so ahead of time. Share in 5 to 7 minutes a story of why Jesus matters to them. The first one is coming up on the first Saturday in December 2nd. And it's at the place, it's at a coffee shop in Milwaukee called Coffee Makes You Black. And that coffee shop is owned by a gentleman who grew up at Hephatha. And he himself is going to be one of the storytellers that night. So Synod communications will go out about this. And this isn't just a plug to try to get you to come to a Synod event. It's because I think this simple practice of sharing why Jesus matters to us actually has deep power to revitalize our ministries. So thank you, Tracy, for inviting us into deep and enriching, life-giving waters tonight. And thank you too to Jeff and to Lydia for joining us. This was really a gift. Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you all for being here tonight and for participating in the conversation and in our spiritual practice. Maybe that's what you were expecting. Maybe it's not what you were expecting, but I appreciated hearing from all of you about what this meant to you. And I hope others were inspired as well. I have really been inspired. And we pray that this inspiring conversation will help spark inspiring discussions in your congregations. So again, if you want to use the video presentation, that will be available soon at milwaukee-synod.org/inspired-for-mission. And as a reminder, if you have been inspired and want to learn more, you can reach out to Tracy. Tracy, if you put anything in the chat, I don't see it showing up, or if you're working on that, thank you. You can also reach out to Pastor Matt or to me or to another member of our mission table as well. If you would like to be on an email list for events like this one, opportunities to talk about and learn about where God is leading our church, you can put your email address in the chat as well. If you'd like to stick around and talk with folks from the mission table for a minute tonight, you can do that as well. We'll hang on for just a couple minutes after the conversation. But again, just thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.